this video, I'm going to walk you through an overview of QuantStats, an extensive financial metrics library built as a portfolio profiling tool. And with it, you can generate some nice reports like this with just a simple one-liner. Right? So we're going to be able to use QuantStats to effectively measure portfolio performance or backtest any trading algorithms that you might be interested in trying. So QuantStats relies on some familiar data science-y libraries that you probably already use. And I'm in PyCharm here. I started a new project. If you're doing the same thing, you're going to want to make sure that these dependencies are installed. I'm using a slightly older version of Pandas just because QuantStats has not been updated in, it looks like, around 6 or so months. And so I'm a little worried that there may be some incompatibility there as Pandas kind of relentlessly upgrades and refactors code. All right, so these are the requirements. You can stick it in a requirements.txt and then go ahead and run that with pip. All right, and then the other thing is there's 3 modules in QuantStats. There's stats, there's plots, and there's reports, and it's too much to cover in a single video, so I'm basically going to give you an overview. And I'm going to show you how to get started, and I'm going to leave it up to you to kind of continue on from there. All right, and I'm going to show you how to do all this right after a word from our sponsor. Interested in learning how to create trading algorithms with Python? Let LumiWealth help with their algorithmic trading course. In this course, you're going to learn how to create bots that automatically trade for you, implement and use technical and financial metrics, and use machine learning to create unique trading algorithms. You can learn at your own pace, or you can join the live classes for a collaborative experience. Learn more about LumiWealth by following the link below and get 15% off any of their trading courses. Okay, I'm starting with a new blank file here, and I'm just going to go ahead and import QuantStats. Okay, I am going to set a stock symbol here to look at, and I'll just get the S&P 500 ETF, and then we'll use this to go ahead and see what the performance has been over the last, say, 3 years. Okay, so I'm going to use qs.utils to download the returns. Right, and this does rely on yfinance to get data. You can use any data source. There's no magic here. All right, I'll print it off. You'll see what we get. And it's just a Pandas series with daily returns going back however far you want to go. All right, and so I'll get the returns for the stock, and then the default is to go back as far as it can, and I'm just going to tell it to go back 3 years. That'll be enough for the purposes of what we're doing. And then, yeah, like I said, we'll just go ahead and print off a little bit of that. Right, so get the first few rows there, and then we'll try it out just to see how that's working. Okay, and so, yep, there we can see going back 3 years as of the date of this video, right? And yep, you're just getting a series with dates and times here, and then we just have here the instantaneous rates of return. Okay, so I don't need to keep printing that off. With that, we're ready to go ahead and just take a look at some of these stats that QuantStats has. All right, and if you want to get a list of what's there, I guess we can print off available stats. All right, there's, like I said, way more than I can cover here in a short video anyway. All right, so I'll just go ahead and print off a list comprehension of that. Okay, and I'll skip the private functions. Okay, that's that. Okay, so you can see, right, I'm going to have to scroll across here to get an idea, but it's pretty extensive. All right, I'm going to show a few common statistics, right, and then I'll sort of leave it up to you to figure out how much more of this is going to be relevant to you. Okay, all right, I will comment some of that out, and then we'll go ahead and print off a couple for this S&P 500 over the last 3 years. So I'll just choose a couple. Okay, so we might as well get the Sharpe ratio, and it's going to be qs.stat, and then right from the dot I can get another look at all of the available functions, right? Very comprehensive. All right, and then we're just going to be able to use a lot of one-liners and get some pretty powerful outputs here. Okay, and I might as well get a couple while I'm here. We'll get our best day. Okay, so over the last 3 years, what's the best day? Okay, and then, yep, pass in the portfolio. And this is going to give us our best day. If we want a different aggregation, copy and paste this, we can ask it to aggregate differently. And so I can get the best month, for example. Okay. All right. So that is the standard call. They also have a wrapper for Pandas that allows you to make method calls to Pandas with QuantStats. All right, so to do that, you're going to call QuantStats and then extend Pandas. All right, so the difference here is that instead of using qs.stats, etc., right, I'm just going to be able to call the portfolio object, right, and then stick off whatever statistic I'm interested in, right? So compounded annual gross return, right? A couple more, we can get something like the max drawdown. All right, and then one nice thing you get is a Pandas data frame with monthly returns. All right, so I'm gonna put that in here, and then that'll be enough to kind of show you the capabilities of just this stats module. Okay, so let's try that out. So there's our Sharpe, right? Our best day was 9%. Our best month was 12, almost 13%. Okay, our max drawdown about a third. All right, and then the compounded annual returns, about 9.5%. All right, but here's what you get, and obviously to cut out a little bit in the table, it would probably show it all if I was running this in a notebook. All right, but we can see that, returns, and in this first year, I'm starting in December, so there's nothing up until I get to December, right? And then, okay, we can see for each year what the monthly return was and then what the annual return was, right? So we can go ahead and use this, save it as a variable, maybe plot it, or do some other analyses that you want with that. All right, so it's a very nice functionality with a bunch of just little one-liners here. Okay. Another thing you can do is build portfolios. So I'm going to jump into another file here, and I'll just start off with my imports, and then I'm going to build some kind of an index, all right, and it won't be anything fancy, but just to give you an idea, right, I'm going to put these parameters in a dictionary, and then I'm going to put some weights here, all right, and I'm going to go use a little bit of leverage here, so I'm going to overinvest in SPY, and then I'm going to decide to maybe short something, and so I'll do the aggregate bond index, and I will go -30 on that. Okay. All right, so now my portfolio is going to use QuantStats utils again, and here, instead of downloading returns, I'm going to make an index first. All right, and then I'm going to pass in the index, and I'm going to decide how long to invest for. So again, I'm going to make it comparable to what we had in just the S&P 500. All right, so I'll go 3 years again. Okay, and then it will audit. So let's see what we get when we do this. Run this. Okay, so you can see once again we're sort of getting our returns here, but now it's based on, right, I'm long 130% SPY, and I'm short the bond index here. Okay. All right. And then I'm going to use this file to show us a little bit of the QuantStats plots module. Okay. And before I do that, I'm going to make one adjustment here. Again, like I said, this hasn't been updated in a while. I have uncovered one little problem with the older code, and it's that it doesn't like the timestamp somehow in Pandas. So we're going to remove the localization of the time zone here. So I'll just call this portfolio, right, index, and I'm going to set it equal to itself. All right, but I'm going to remove that time zone. Okay. All right, and so from there we can probably just start looking at some of these outputs. And again, I'll just show a couple. All right, there are lots of plot, and so right, I've already extended Pandas, so all I have to do is call my variable, and then I'm going to plot earnings. The only thing you lose here is sort of the indexing, right? So when you extend Pandas, you lose the ability to get the dot and then the drop down of the names of things that are available. All right, so that is one benefit to just calling it directly from QuantStats. All right, so here I'm just going to put in a starting balance, and let's start with 10,000, I guess. We're not super rich. And then if I'm running this in a notebook, I'm going to be able to show the output right in the notebook. But since I'm working in PyCharm, I'm going to save it out as a file. All right, so it doesn't let me just plot show here. All right, so I made a folder for my output. All right, so I'm just going to stick this in there, and I've called it output. All right, and I'll just call it, portfolio earnings. Okay, and it'll be a PN. All right, and then I'm going to go right on and make the second plot that we'll show you here. All right, and it's going to be something that's going to be one of my favorite plots, right? And so it's going to be plot monthly heat map. Okay, and once again, I will just save the figure. I'm not going to put any other parameters in there. All right, I'm going to put it in this output folder, and I'll just call it portfolio this. And let's go ahead and try that. Yeah, we're getting a warning here about, again, this is just sort of, Pandas is ahead of QuantStats. I'm sure that it's going to be updated soon. All right, so maybe you won't even see that. But let's just take a quick look at what is there. Here's our portfolio earnings and our portfolio heat map. So let's just double click to sort of open that. So no great shakes there, right? You get a plot, right? You get some other nice things up here in the subheading, right? How much money you made, right? 2153, what that represents as a return, all right? And then, right, you kind of get highlighted on the high point there. So that's pretty nice, all right? Let's take a look at the other plot, which is this heat map. And here, right, we can go in, and again, it's basically a different representation of that monthly returns table that I generated when I was using the QuantStats stats module. All right, so from here you can just visually quickly see where the goodness and the badness occurred. All right, and then, yep, there's a lot of badness currently, right? And yeah, we'll come out of that soon, don't worry. All right. Okay, so that's just some of the stuff you can do with the plots. And, if you want to see a list of the plots, we can just call plots and, call plots. And you can get an idea of all the stuff that you can plot. All right, so I'm not going to show more of this because many of these show up in the final module I'm going to show you, which is the report module, and there's really only one thing in there. It generates that HTML file that I showed at the beginning of the video. Okay, so to save a little bit of time here, what I did was go ahead and set this up. So I'm just going to walk us through the code because it doesn't really benefit you a lot to watch me write it. I'm going to make the code available on GitHub anyway. All right, so since this is more involved, I'm going to set up a trading algorithm, right? And it requires me to do a bunch of other stuff. So I'm getting, date time. I'm getting the date util library. All right, I'm going to use the file system. I'm going to directly manipulate my data with Pandas, and I'm going to use Pandas data reader. I could use yfinance, but the source is the same, right? I'm going to get data from Yahoo, so it doesn't really matter too much. And yep, you can use any API you want to get data. All right, and then finally, I'm going to open the file automatically with the web browser. All right, so quickly, the strategy is just a really basic moving average cross. All right, so I'm going to pass in a ticker. I'm going to pass in a slow moving average and a fast moving average. All right, and optionally, I can check a different time window if I don't want it to end today. I could, look at some other period in the past. All right, and then I'm going to default it to 3 years. All right. And so then I went in, the first thing I did was check to see if the end had been set, and when it isn't, we're going to use today, all right, and then we're going to go back that relative delta using the date util library, 3 years, all right, and then from there, we can go into using the Pandas data reader here, right, getting data from Yahoo, start date and end date, and I just need the closing column, all right, and then I need to start adding some columns to that data frame. All right, so I'm going to get a slow and a fast, all right, and then I'm going to calculate the returns from every day, and then I'm going to put the strategy in. So basically, right, as soon as I cross one of these averages, as soon as the fast crosses above the slow, we're going to go long, right? And then as soon as the fast closes below the slow, we're going to go short. All right, so we're going to be in the market most of the time, and then I'm just going to calculate those returns based on, right, whether or not I'm long or short here. Okay, and I return all that. So essentially I come back with a Pandas series, and that's what QuantStats likes. It likes the Pandas series. All right, so down below here then, I'm going to call my strategy, right, the moving average cross. I'm going to use gold here. I'm going to use pretty fast, slow and fast, right? So 21 days about the last trading month, and then about the last 2 trading weeks. All right, we're going to localize that timestamp again. All right, and then I'm just going to compare it to, well, what would happen if I had invested in gold on its own. Okay, all right, so then down below, right, I'm going to call QS reports. HTML is the report you get. All right, and then here I can pass in 2 parameters, right, the strategy and then my benchmark. So the strategy is going to be that, moving average, and then the benchmark is going to be just buy and hold gold. All right, then I have to tell it where to save the file, and then finally I'm going to go ahead and open that file with the web browser, whatever your default is. All right, so let's try this out, see what happens. Okay, so just like that, we get this really comprehensive report, right? The high level here is that here's my strategy, and it outperformed the buy and hold gold here. And over on the right here, we get more statistics than anybody could ever possibly want about this investment strategy. All right, so we can see that over this 3-year period, I outperformed by, somewhere around 8.5%, right? I get another almost 2.5% in compounded annual returns, right? My Sharpe's better, right? And then, right, we can just sort of go on and on and on with what you get out of here. All right, but you also get a comprehensive portfolio of plots here. So here's my distribution of returns, right? What it's looking at year by year in terms of when did I beat, when did I lose, right? The daily returns are just plotted, not super exciting, but there they are. You can see roughly crude measures of volatility from that. All right, and then one nice thing they have in here are your drawdown periods. All right, so here's a drawdown, and then okay, how long did it take me to climb out of that thing? All right, and then I think it gives you a table with that, right? So there's that first one, 135 days, 208, and so forth, almost a year there. Okay. All right. And then, finally down at the bottom, we get that month by month returns like we got from the plots module. All right. So all this is actually coming out of the plots module, right? So that's why I didn't spend a lot of time with plots. We get a pretty good representation of what's possible from this report. Okay. All right. So I hope that helps you get started with QuantStats.